CWS. Good evening. First of all, thank you for tuning in tonight, especially our new listeners. I want to give a very special thanks to you because with something new, there's always some kind of anxiety, or usually some kind of anxiety or in anticipation. So I want to thank you very much for tuning in. CWS, as you may have heard, but I say this every week for the benefit of our new listeners. CWS is having conversations with people about their journeys. How are they using their gifts and talents to help others? How are they contributing to humanity in a positive way? I'm always attuned to success. I love success. I am passionate about success. I encourage others to be successful because I think it's important. But I'll get to why I am so passionate about success. However, when I bring a guest on or invite a guest to come on, I'm often interested not just in their successes, but how do they overcome their challenges? Because to me, someone overcoming their challenges, like someone falling down and getting up, that informs me about the character of that person, the true mettle of that person. And so with that, it helps me to spread a message of, yes, I can, in spite of. And because part of our audience are youths around the world, youths who I especially have a soft spot for, because I believe that they are the leaders and our leaders of tomorrow. And just imagine a young boy or a young girl listening to you, not just your success, but how you've overcome some of your challenges and being inspired to overcome theirs, to step beyond their limitations and challenges. That, to me, makes for a successful show. And this is what CWS is all about. You see, I am very rarely, as a matter of fact, I am never interested in how many wells you have dug. Congratulations. What I am interested in is how many thirsts you have quenched. Not how many barns you have built or helped to construct, but how much hunger you have contributed to easing, to eliminating. That is what makes me come on here every week to talk to someone, to invite them to tell us their story, to talk about their journey, so we can learn something together. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, please take advantage of our chat room. This is a three-dimensional process in which you're invited to go into the chat room, ask questions, make comments. I will then read it to our guests, and we will all participate in that. So I want to thank you. Tonight, we have a guest, a special guest. We had a conversation before, not on CWS. This is his first time back, and I'm happy about that. His name is Nigel Barto. After the break, I will introduce you to him formally. But before I take a break, I especially want to send out special happy birthday to two lovely young ladies, two friends of mine who I grew up with. But most importantly, because they were guests of our shows, part of our enclave of women of CWS. So happy birthday to my dear sister Adele Williams Sewell and Avril Anande Trotman. I don't have the guts, I don't have the courage. I will not risk saying how old you are. That is none of, well, maybe it's my business, but happy birthday. And I wish you much peace, much blessing, much prosperity, much love. Thank you. And so I'll take a break, and when I get back, I'll introduce you to Nigel Barto. Good evening. I'm Selwyn Collins, your host on CWS. First of all, thank you for tuning in tonight, especially our new listeners. I want to give a very special thanks to you because with something new, there's always some kind of anxiety, or usually some kind of anxiety or in anticipation. So I want to thank you very much for tuning in. CWS, as you may have heard, but I say this every week for the benefit of our new listeners. CWS is having conversations with people about their journeys. How are they using their gifts and talents to help others? How are they contributing to humanity in a positive way? I'm always attuned to success. I love success. I am passionate about success. I encourage others to be successful because I think it's important. But I'll get to why I am so passionate about success. However, when I bring a guest on or invite a guest to come on, I'm often interested not just in their successes, but how do they overcome their challenges? Because to me, someone overcoming their challenges, like someone falling down and getting up, that informs me about the character of that person, the true mettle of that person. And so with that, it helps me to spread a message of, yes, I can, in spite of. And because part of our audience are youths around the world, youths who I especially have a soft spot for because I believe that they are the leaders and our leaders of tomorrow. And just imagine a young boy or a young girl listening to you, not just your success, but how you've overcome some of your challenges and being inspired to overcome theirs, to step beyond their limitations and challenges. That, to me, makes for a successful show. And this is what CWS is all about. You see, I am very rarely, as a matter of fact, I am never interested in how many wells you have dug. Congratulations. What I am interested in is how many thirsts you have quenched. Not how many barns you have built or helped to construct, but how much hunger you have contributed to easing, to eliminating. That is what makes me come on here every week to talk to someone, to invite them to tell us their story, to talk about their journey so we can learn something together. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, please take advantage of our chat room. This is a three-dimensional process in which you're invited to go into the chat room, ask questions, make comments. I will then read it to our guests, and we will all participate in that. So I want to thank you. Tonight, we have a guest, a special guest. We had a conversation before, not on CWS. This is his first time back, and I'm happy about that. His name is Nigel Barto. After the break, I will introduce you to him formally. But before I take a break, I especially want to send out special happy birthday to two lovely young ladies, two friends of mine who I grew up with. But most importantly, because they were guests of our shows, part of our enclave of women of CWS. So happy birthday to my dear sister Adele Williams Sowell and Avril Anande Trotman. I don't have the guts, I don't have the courage. I will not risk saying how old you are. That is none of, well, maybe it's my business, but happy birthday. And I wish you much peace, much blessing, much prosperity, much love. Thank you. And so I'll take a break, and when I get back, I'll introduce you to Nigel Barto. We are back. Good evening. On the other side of my screen is my guest tonight, my good friend Nigel Barto. Nigel, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Selwyn. Happy to be on with you.
Happy to have you, my friend. What does it feel like coming back for a second time?
It feels great. I look forward to chatting with you. I want to know what you want to talk about tonight.
Okay, okay. Well, let's start by let me start by just giving a rundown of your bio. Nigel has lived in two countries, U.S. and Trinidad and Tobago. Loves traveling and has been to various places, reaching six continents: Asia, Africa, North America, South America, Europe, and Australia. Obtained a BA in Business Management and a Juris Doctor from Temple University School of Law in Philadelphia. Once managed photo and rights clearance projects for companies including U.S. Postal Service, National Geographic, Discovery Channel, International Spy Museum, McGraw-Hill's Books, and W.H. Freeman Publishers. Once managed music licenses for MTV Networks. He worked on many channels including MTV, MTV2, MTV Traz, Spike TV, TV Land, and Nickelodeon. Books. Nigel has self-published two novels and a book of short stories entitled Feed Me. He began writing Roses Are Red poems for his mother in the second grade. Well, I don't want to get into that. I want to leave some for Nigel because we are going to go into his timeline a little bit. See you laughing, my brother.
Who are you talking about? That's me. I did those things.
Yes, sir. Yes. So, I understand your life motto is enjoy the journey, forget the end.
Yes.
What does that quote mean to you?
Well, I began writing that many years ago, and it became a motto. I didn't actually know it was my motto, but I realized after some time, I used to always write that for other people. And having different jobs or being in school, and so when you signing cards, because people are moving on, or in school they're graduating. A lot of times that was my message: enjoy the journey, forget the end. I was really talking to myself, I think, and I realized, that is something that I take to heart. And I do love to travel, and I love to go different places, and I've been to many places. But the journey is not really in the places. For me, a lot of the journey is really internal, and it's really everything that brings me to this point today and what I'm doing. And so it's just a matter of me being one in the universe, part of the universe, and being a student of life and of observation and of people. And it's about not being so focused and controlled by the end and the bottom line, because really the reward is in the details, and it's along the way. And so it's about enjoying the journey, and it's all about lessons as well, because the journey is not always a bed of roses, and so we have to appreciate it for what it is, and figure out what we can take from it and move to the next place.
I like that phrase. Don't be controlled by the end. How important? Elaborate a little. How important is that to not be controlled by the end?
I think it's very important. I think, sure, we need goals. We should have objectives, the things we're striving for, the places we want to be, the things we want to do. We want to live in a particular way, and create a quality of life for ourselves, what makes sense for us. But you cannot be so consumed and obsessed about getting there that you don't appreciate what it takes to get there, right? And then, as people often say, and then what? Once you get there, and then what, right? And so it's creating another rung on a ladder for yourself, and because those are just those kinds of things, right? But there's so much joy and amazement and education along the way, that I think a lot of times that is actually sweeter than actually getting there.
Gotcha.
Wherever that thing or place is for you.
So the journey. You
Yes,
okay?
yes.
So tell.
So I say that to everyone, and
Mhm.
especially young people. I say, enjoy the journey, and you have to tell it to yourself, because a lot of times you're just rushing around, moving very quickly through your life, and encountering a lot of people along the way. But you have to enjoy that journey because it is a journey.
Quite appropriate, especially with youths. Tell us, if you will, a memory from your childhood in Trinidad that explains who you are as a storyteller.
Wow, that's hard because I left when I was quite young and raised in the States, and then started returning when I got older. But I will say that I was always someone who was maybe looking out for others. I remember there was this interesting time when I was very careful to want to protect a piece of mail that my mother got, and I hid it, and and I put it in a book. I don't know if it was like a dictionary or a Bible or some book, thinking I was protecting it. And weeks had passed, and I didn't remember that it came, and I didn't give it to her. And finally, I did give it to her and show it to her, and it was really important information because she needed to go to the embassy and check up on some things for her own travel. And this was many years ago. And as that story is told back to me, it just makes me think of events in a story,
Hmm.
and how I love telling stories, and how I guess I've been in my own stories as well. So yeah,
So
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 one
so.
small example from the island.
So for benefit of our listeners who missed you the first time, how did you get into theater? Has it been something you always wanted to do?
I would no, I would say no. I think not theater specifically. I think I kind of fell into it. I would say creative arts. Uh, um, I was a shy kid, always been a shy kid. Grew up to be a shy guy, and sometimes one would say reserved, when you get a little older.
Right.
But I remember, I shouldn't say I remember, from the age of 6, I've been writing poetry to my mom. Roses are red, violets are blue, and you alluded to that a little bit earlier.
Hmm.
And I didn't discover that about myself until probably early 20s, and I was going through some papers that she had, a box, and it was a file, and I pulled out a bunch of papers, and it was sheets of poems that I wrote to my mom when I was 6. So I think from an early age, definitely trying to seek out ways to express myself.
Hmm.
And when I got into high school, a few friends said, you should come and join stage crew, and have some fun with us and help us build some sets and that kind of a thing. And sure, I was motivated, and I said, yeah, that sounds cool. And then that led me to the stage, and then I auditioned and acted a little bit, and that was great. It was still about finding my own voice, finding a way to express myself because I was still just this shy kid. Um, and then in college, it was the same thing. It was feeling comfortable and familiar with that type of place, um, the creative arts, and so then I did that as well. And I was in a play called The First Breeze of Summer by a New York playwright named Leslie Lee, which was a great play, and I played the role of Sam Green,
Hmm.
and two interesting things came out of that for me while I was in college, and I met this woman who I admired, and she inspired me, and she was all about knowledge and learning, and being generous to other people, and she taught me about the dictionary, and she would talk incessantly about reading the dictionary, wanting to learn every word in the dictionary, and how she took time to, basically read it like a book, right? And every page and every word and learning every word. And I was amazed and inspired, and I said, "Oh, I want to do that too." And so I began on this journey to do that. And so, actually, the dictionary is one of my favorite books because of that and because of her.
You
But
act.
the other thing that was interesting was that, while it was cool to be on stage and to, to create characters, I started getting interested in the storytelling aspect of it, and thinking about this playwright. And our director was a friend of this playwright and had gone to school with him. So he would share little things, and it started making me think about, well, how can you bring that together and put it into a play format, and create this type of piece on stage. And so that was kind of how it evolved for me. And but then I left it for a while, and then came back to it later, and then here we are, two plays.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about being comfortable in the creative arts, where you found a comfort zone. You didn't mention the word zone, but that's the sense I got. What made you comfortable within the creative arts at a young age?
I think that I've always been independent,
Mm-hmm.
a bit of a loner, and also um, a champion for the underdog. And I think that as I met interesting, artistic, creative, quirky, different people, um, that seemed very comfortable. And you find all of that in the arts, right? Being able to express the world in so many different ways and forms. So that felt good. And also being a people watcher, observing life through them.
Mm-hmm. Creative people tend to, there's a stigma that in which sometimes people call creative people weird, strange, out there. Have you ever been referred as any one of those things? And if so, how did you deal with that?
I can't think of specific examples about weird and that kind of a thing.
Right.
Usually I get nice. I don't know what that means. Nice. I'm nice. I'm not
Nice,
nice.
nice,
No.
nice, like interesting. One of those lazy adjectives, right? Yeah, I can't stand them. But sometimes I'm hypocritical. Sometimes I use them when I'm in a situation and can't think of a better word. But you're also an author.
Yes.
Please tell us about private sessions and the significance of the grandmother. Is that character based on an experience with your own grandmother?
No, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Nothing like my grandmother. Nothing like my mother. Um, well, I should say, with respect to this grandmother's trade and how she lived her life, in the story, nothing like my grandmother or mother. But in terms of working hard, wanting to um, see her children and grandchildren and the next generations do well, and doing all that she can do. Her husband died young, and she was a widow, and so she was basically on her own. And just her perseverance and her strong will. Sure, I can see some of that in my own kinfolk, um, but not how this woman lived her life in other ways.
So what was private sessions really based on? I mean, if you know.
Um, it's about a young man basically trying to unravel his past so that he can move into a future and live more comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
And he grew up with his mom and grandma, and they both died horribly. And his grandma was alleged to be murdered, and he saw his mom die and be murdered at the hands of her boyfriend. Um, and through it all, he feels pretty guilty about that because he feels maybe he had a part to play in that because it's a bit fuzzy for him. But meanwhile, with them gone, he's left with trust funds that must be used to fulfill his education, and so he pursues that, and so he does go to undergrad, and then he goes on to law school, and so there's just a lot of struggles that's going on with being alone in the world without really having family, and trying to figure out who you are and what you want to do. And then there's also a period of where he's still pining for his girlfriend because through various actions he loses her. And so his world is pretty much crumbling, and he turns to drugs and sex and kind of the selling himself, and he really does a kind of a 360, but in a weird way. It kind of is familiar, but not familiar, because what I didn't tell you is his grandmother ran a brothel, and at some point his mother, her daughter, worked for her. So it's kind of he kind of came back home in a way, because that's
Where it
um,
began.
the family he came from, even though they tried to protect him from that. And so the story opens up where he's in the hospital trying to figure out why he's in the hospital, because of the drugs, and needing to put pieces together, so that he can sort his life out. And so there's just different private sessions with the therapist and private sessions with himself, and where he journals a lot, about what's going on and trying to figure out what really happened that night with his mother.
Okay. Was that
So hopefully you want to go get the book now, yeah?
a shameless plug, right? And your other book, Feed Me, a collection of short stories that rouses your heart, wakes your adoring mind, and ignites passion. Were you inspired by a trip to Paris?
I certainly was.
Aha.
Thanks for asking. I certainly was. And that trip um, got me writing a short story. Earlier, I was telling you how I was inspired by the creative arts, and even the play in college, and fascinated about being able to tell a story and then moving on to do different things in life and walking away from it. And actually, the story that is in the book, Feed Me, is kind of what brought me back. Um, I did a little studying in Paris, France, um, and when it was time for me to return to the States, oh man, it was um, just a crazy time, and difficult with respect to customs and visas and money and not having money and traveling to different countries, and um, finding myself in Belgium and trying to get to Brussels so I can get to the airport, but then they sent me back, so I had to get back to London, and I'm hitchhiking and all kinds of things that I would normally be doing. And and so for 2 3 days, it was just crazy experience. And again, while I'm an adult, I'm still kind of this shy loner guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am by myself there, without a lot of international travel experience at the time. And so when I came back, I shared a lot of this with my mom, and she said, you should write a story about that. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should. And as I started to write, I fell in love with words and storytelling again. Um, and that got me going, and has kept me going. And that story is called Returning Home, and it is actually in the book Feed Me,
Mm-hmm.
um, along with other short stories, about various different intimate encounters that I've had. Um, Not that I've had, but that observed. They're not all about me,
All right.
but that one is definitely the piece, the anchor, not only for the book, but what got me going again and inspired me to want to move to the next place to write novels, and then try my hand again at telling a story on stage. Um, and then now, after all of these years, taking some of my poetry and bringing it to stage as well. But at the end of the day, I consider myself a writer, and it's about writing. If it was always just to share it with myself, then that was fine. And now I have a great opportunity to be able to share more of it with other people. So much of it was just for me. And so thankfully, because of that, I have material, and now the material comes out. And
But
so I guess it's a matter of timing, and just kind of
let me
wherever you are in life. And I think that's part of the journey as well. When
let
I
me
talk to
ask you. Let me ask
myself.
you. You mentioned being a writer, and before. you had said you fell in love with words again, and that brought me present to what writers go through from time to time, either writer's block or I like how you put it. If I might use that metaphor, fell in love with words again. I guess they fell out of love not with words but with writing, or have lost something that will take them to the typewriter or the keyboard and write. But for writers who might be in our audience tonight, listening, what advice would you give to a writer that is struggling to get up or to just write? To they're just either suffering from writer's block, or they kind of like drifted away from the process and they want to get back in. You got back in because you've had some situations, experiences on your way back, trying to navigate your way back to the States, and then your mom said, "Well, you know what? You should write a book about your experiences and so on."
Yes.
What advice? I don't want to come up to premise the advice by saying you need to have a tragedy or whatever. But what advice as a seasoned writer would you?
Well, I think that for you to write, you have to read as well. And I've heard people say that.
That what?
And
Sorry, I didn't hear.
for you to write, you also have to read,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think sometimes that can help, right? Even though sometimes I'm not able to take the time to do that, because I think that when you read other people's stories, that can inspire you,
Yes.
because you don't only enjoy stories and appreciate how the story evolved, but it makes you think. If you're that person, it makes you think about other stories, and stories that you want to tell, um, and how in different ways you can tell it. So I think that can be helpful,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I find for me, I can't really do it as a job. I understand, people say, you should write every day. And there were times where I tried to do that. I tried to be very disciplined. And you do have to be disciplined. You really do have to sit down and just you and your thoughts, you and your words, you and the page, you and your computer, you and your typewriter, if anyone's using that these days, you and your iPad, etc. Um, and be with yourself and get in the heads of these characters, and just be as truthful and as authentic as you want these people to be, and then walk away from it and then come back, right? Because I just feel like if you're just trudging along as though you have to hit someplace at the end of the day, I don't know, if that's I don't know if that's opening yourself up to the creative juices. I mean, I think that's just more of a system and a plan. I mean, you can set those goals, but be okay with where you get to. Um, and, just like any fighter, you got to get back up and throw some more punches. So, pick it up again. If nothing comes, put it back down. And for me, my creativity, I'm doing so many things at one time,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's many stories in many places. Um, and that kind of works for me. I pick it back up and I fall in love with it. I said that a little bit before, but I do. If I'm not enjoying it, if I don't like the way it sounds, the rhythm, the movement, then I'm not sure other people will either, and so it's not working for me.
Well,
You know.
I have and if I may add this, I have been lucky in the sense that I have three things, three tools. Two I created. One, I have friends, close friends, who I can't I can't persuade them to ease off of me, to stay on top of me. If I'm working on a project and I gotta write, um, and I have Facebook. Facebook is my laboratory, and I write something every single day, and it helps because there's this inspiration to write. Then the other thing I do is just write anything. Just write something on the pad. And that is something I stole from someone. I was in a bookstore once, and I was browsing through a book, and this famous writer, I can't remember her name, said, just write anything. Anything. and then that's supposed to trigger you off. So I guess everybody has their own different tools, but you know, um, I think it's important, as you said, it's important to just to write. You know.
Yeah, I think so. I
Mm-hmm.
think it is, and for me, sometimes it's some of the difficulty lately is as I do more producing and directing of things, and so I'm taking control of my vision to bring something off the page onto the stage. Then that takes me away from the joy of just writing the story.
I
But it's all good because it's a rewarding process, and it's a learning process, and it's an interesting place. Um,
but
but it does uh,
Nigel,
cut up my time.
sorry, sorry. You mentioned just now about taking control, and it brings me to a question. You create a short story project, a journey to take, which invites everyone to add a paragraph to the ongoing story on Facebook. What has that experience been like? What has surprised you about that?
Well, I actually temporarily closed it for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to relaunch it and just think about it some more. But it was interesting because it was an opportunity to create a story as a community, and so it was another way to work with fellow artists, fellow creators, fellow writers, people who I don't know, but as a way to come together and and just improvise and just kind of see where the journey of this story with other people's words would take us. So it was pretty interesting, pretty very fascinating. The people who participated were awesome. They
In a,
took time and were willing to just jump right in. And from wherever the story stopped, they took it from there and moved to another paragraph and created that. And it's almost like how some people will create a poem thread. I don't know if you've heard of that, where someone will start off with a poem, one line, and then other
mm-hmm.
people on social media or wherever they're doing it will add, and then six people have now created what is this poem.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it was a similar kind of idea, and so we wanted to see where that would go, and potentially create, one of the longest short stories possible. I was working with my good friend Lori Payne on this project, and we plan to do more. Yes, we do, Lori. We plan to do more if you're listening.
Lori's
but
on, by the way, Nigel. She's on. She
okay,
actually
awesome. But
is in the chat room. I'll read what she said to you just now. In a way, can that short story project be considered live theater as it unfolds on Facebook, or as it unfolded on Facebook? Because I think you took it down, right?
yes, it's behind the scenes right now.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, but we still want to do more with it.
Uh,
Um,
that
uh,
you mentioned. Sorry, go ahead.
yes. Sorry, I was going to make a point about how people have come together. You threw me off, Selwyn.
Sorry about that. You
That's
mentioned Lori, and I just want to go to the chat room. Lori says it's wonderful to hear Nigel tell his story. I always wondered what makes him tick. So I guess by the end of the conversation, she'll get a lot about what makes you tick, right, Nigel?
maybe, maybe.
What kind of theater excites you? You know what? Let's take a short break.
Okay.
All right. I am Selwyn Collins, your host. The gentleman next to me is Nigel Barto, our guest for the evening. Nigel,
Yes.
the question I asked was what kind of theater excites you?
Um, Provocative, thought provoking, entertaining, all of it really. Um, um, I like stuff that makes me laugh and cry
Mm-hmm.
and talk about it a week later, and as well as stuff that's big and showy at times, and that has music and dance. Um, the whole gamut, as long as it's done well um, and it transcends me in a way,
Mm-hmm.
it's not I'm sitting in a theater watching someone on stage. I just become part of the experience, through watching it, and that's pretty awesome for me, And I try to do that with movies as well. I like to go to the movies by myself. uh, Away from people as much as I can, So I got to get in there earlier in the day, um, and just experience it. And now sometimes I watch for more things than I would normally watch for as I'm creating more pieces for myself. So I'm listening to music and seeing scene changes and that kind of a thing. So sometimes that's not so great. But when I can not do that and just relax, then I just enjoy the experience and be moved. And so I'm really inspired by everything and a lot of things really. Um, and I know that there are people who have said certain things to me, implying that there's some master plan, and I guess there is, but that's not in my hands. And so that's part of enjoy the journey as well for me as well, because with each turn and with each new thing and with each opportunity, and partnership. It's enjoying the journey because I'm not sure where it's coming from. And I think I shared something like this with you in one of our conversations some time ago, Selwyn, about, how this is bigger than me. This is not just about me, and I don't know how some of this is happening, in terms of some of the things that I do or opportunities that I've had, and hopefully many people have had those kinds of experiences as well to recognize that it's coming through us, but it's not just for us, and so that also keeps me going, to realize that hopefully they're messages that can help other people, that can help other people create their voice. I think it was Alice Walker who said that with every revolution needs new poems, and so yeah, I think we're always not only collectively in certain revolutions, but just also for ourselves in terms of figuring out who we are and our voice and how we use that to live in our own truth, so that others can as well. And so that means it takes new words or our words or however the words come.
Mm-hmm. Uh, what is the name of the last play, the play that
Christmas weekend?
was that Christmas weekend, right? Where Laurie was the main one of
Yes.
the main characters and so on.
Yes, she played Mummy.
Played. By the way, she's in the chat room. She says, "Yes, I'm listening." So, yes, she played mommy. Brilliant performance. Very very brilliant
Brilliant,
performance.
brilliant. She's awesome.
You know,
Yeah, she's a Renaissance woman, by the way.
yes,
She does and can do many things.
Laurie's one of our family members. She is a woman of CWS. She was on here,
Yes.
right? And I'm glad I had Laurie on. Very interesting, exciting conversation. Um, Talking about her brilliant performance, how do you go about selecting a actors and actresses for your parts? Do you have a special process, special criteria? Sorry.
Not particularly special than the traditional of putting word out and having, um, you know people submit for auditions and going through that process. A lot of it I took on um, myself for my play that I did a few years ago. And but thankfully and luckily and blessedly, I was able to work with Laurie in this case for my new play, Too Late, and so thanks to her, I have nine wonderful, talented
Wait,
stars that I'm about to bring to stage for you all this summer, and I
Laurie's
cannot
coming back.
wait because I am so proud of this.
Nigel, you're jumping and you're preempting my questions. I was going to say,
Sorry.
well, but no, that's all right. That's great. That's
I'm
wonderful. It's
excited.
good.
I'm
We're having a
excited.
conversation, right? We're having a conversation. But anyway, I want to say congrats on your latest play, Too Late,
Thank you.
which you also directed. It will have 5 evening performances from July 16th to 20th at the Poets Den Theater in the East Harlem Arts District. What is the play about?
Many things. My sister said to me, I was probably a late teen, and she said to me, you have to be careful and cautious with everything you do in life, with every step you take, everything you say, everything you do, because everything has a consequence. No matter how small or big it is, there is a consequence to it. There is an impact. Um, and and you may not always be able to go back. Or can you? Is it always too late? Sometimes it is. And so I think this rings true for this family in Too Late, the Lacey's. And, they're just like you and me, and they are a regular small family living in a small beach town in Southern Maryland, um, living every day to try and live honestly. But there have been actions, and now there are going to be some consequences this summer. And unfortunately, a lot of times when death knocks, truth walks in.
Hmm.
And so in this case, there are going to be some truth that walks in. And so for this family, there aren't any villains and there aren't any victims. They're just real people who are trying to figure out, how they live in their own truth and how they understand other people's truths, and kind of figure out how they move forward, um, after some turmoil and some sadness happens to them.
Um, Let me just go to the chat room for a second. As I said, read before, Lori said, "Yes, I'm listening." GD, what makes for good theater in your view? Hold that thought for a second. Brian, when is your next play? And what is the name of your next play? Brian, the name of his next play is Too Late.
Too
And
late.
Too Late. And it's when it starts July 16th.
July 16th to 20th at the Poets Den Theater. This is in the East Harlem Arts District, so it's on 108th Street. Again, the Poets Den Theater, July 16th to 20th. So come on out,
I'll
8 p.m.
I'll be there.
shows. Um, and it's a dramatic piece. It's provocative. It's thought provoking. It's this family. It's also about fathers and sons. There's some strong messages. Where one son sends some strong messages to his father, and another son offers possibly a different future with his father. So it's family, but it's also fathers and sons. And so, yes, I want everyone in the theater, but I'm calling on you, men and fathers and sons. I want you to come and experience this, because I want some dialogue after this, and so that we can all work towards better relationships and understanding. The story came out of conversations that I had years ago, with young men and some young women who were growing up in single parent households. And for whatever reason, they chose me to share their story in those conversations. Some were friends, some were just associates, other people were just encounters, as you meet people, at the bus stop and things like that, and you get to talking, or at some social function. And And so they would share a lot of the things about their life and the good, bad, and the different and the ugly in growing up, and some of them wanting to know their father, and some of them yearning, and some of them hating, and some of them being quite well fine with it, and all of that. And what I heard and what I felt each time, I always kept saying, I wish their dad was here to hear this story. And so that's kind of where I started with this, wanting to give voice to that young person who wants to give a message to that parent who is estranged. And so then, I created a family that they've all got their issues, and some of them are quite funny because, if it doesn't have love and if it doesn't have some humor, Nigel probably didn't write it, right?
Well,
so,
uh,
while I have some social messages there for you, and giving you some family drama, it's also entertaining, and some interesting ways we will present the story to you. So come check us out. And again,
wonderful.
these 9 stars, man.
Well,
I'm so thankful to have met them and to be working with them, and they're so generous and giving. And I can't wait.
Jay, back in the chat room, Jay said, asked, do you always direct all of your written plays? If so, why? And if not, do you feel comfortable with others directing your written plays?
What was the first part? Do I what?
Um, do you always direct all of your written plays? If so, why? And if not, do you feel comfortable with others directing your written plays?
Well, so far, yes, I have directed my material, and um, it remains to be seen if I would be comfortable with someone else. I'm open to collaboration, so that's not a problem. Or as the repertoire develops, and if other people are interested, then that's a possibility. But I also feel like um, with me doing it, some of it is comfortable as well, because it's close to me, and I have a vision for what I want to see happen on stage. And so again, it's me taking it from the page, and finding a way to be able to breathe some life into it, through the actors, and telling a story, and creating a place, um, and having some fun.
Okay.
So
And
it's a good thing.
yeah. Laurie, Nigel's work has an honesty, color, and humility that is compelling to read. Nigel, would you say your work is about an introspective searching for answers? If not, has there been a common theme?
Yeah, I think it's always a search for truth, and for us to be able to live our truths and find a way, um, to share that, with ourselves. We have to acknowledge and admit that, and then with others, and I think we're always looking for a safe, no judgment zone, to kind of be who we are, um, and grow from our mistakes, and come together, and and sometimes, the things we do and the things we say and how we go about it is really funny when you think about it. The people we encounter, and the people we live with and grow up with, and you kind of want to say, do you have a shared experience? Can you relate to this? And so you put it out there, and the world says, yeah, yeah, I can relate to that, because I think we're just more similar than we are
I was
different.
about to say the same thing.
So it's an opportunity for us to express and explore those intersections.
Hmm. And Jay asked again, since you seem to spend a lot of time alone, how much of you and your reflections do you interweave into your written works?
Well, it's definitely there for sure. Um, but while I'm by myself, I may be out people watching, so it's not necessarily me in a room. I can be at an awesome party, but I'm writing a story while I'm there in my head. And so in a way, that's kind of alone time, even though it's not.
You know, you partially answered my next question about how did you develop this story for Too Late. Um, but I don't know if you did answer it answer this part of the question. What is the significance of the title? Maybe you did when you mentioned fathers and their sons, and sometimes, and correct me if I'm wrong. Some you wish that some of the fathers were there to hear some of the stories. Sometimes we can go back. Maybe we can. Maybe we can't. But I'll let you tell it. What is the significance of the title?
Yeah, that's correct.
That
That's it. That's basically what that is,
that's
you
it.
know.
I got
Um,
an 8 out of
can
10, sir.
can we go back, or how do we, more importantly, how do we move forward,
How
you
do we move
know?
forward? Yeah.
And what is it going to take, you know? And so at some point, you know, can we forgive? You know, can we accept the past and the present? Um, and how do we take that and move forward, you know, with ourselves and with other people, you know? And so, is it too late? Is it really too late? Um,
And what do you hope um, most people will come away with, will take away from Too Late?
well, hopefully it'll be varied, right? Because hopefully it 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 relates to you wherever you are in your life at this point in time, and so that could be many things,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so even though I talked about fathers and sons, you know, I think we can be inspired by all kinds of people. They don't necessarily have to come from us, look like us necessarily. And so I think daughters with fathers and daughters and mothers can be inspired as well in terms of working towards you know, better, honest relationships.
I think Nigel, next month, that's June. I think it's Father's Day in next month.
What's next month?
Father's Day is in.
Father's Day is next month. Yes,
Um, let's see if we can
we're gonna
create.
do something. Yes.
Yes, let's see if we can do something. Since I've added Tuesdays as a day for arts, culture, and entertainment, let us talk about that, right?
Yes.
And see if we can create a show around that. I think is important. Yeah.
Yes, I would love to do that. And
I
you're talking about also my guys, yeah?
Okay. Cool. Cool. Let's do it.
Yeah, I would love to do that. I would
Yeah.
love to do that.
Because
And
fatherhood
to
is tough. It's
be able to talk
it's
about fathers and sons, and you know, because you know, we all have the different perspective of, you know,
different
being fathers or
perspectives,
sons
different
or
experiences. Yeah.
hello.
I would love to do that. We'll talk
Yeah.
about it. And so, family plays an important part in your plays. How has being a Trinidadian influenced how you tell the story of an African American family?
Okay. Um,
I'm glad I wasn't the one to ask that question.
that's your question, or is that an online question?
No. That's my question. That's not from the chat room. That's my
Oh,
question.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. Um, well, the intersection is family, right? And that's universal. Um, um, and you know, and there can be some aspects of that which cross, you know, such as how we use food, for example, in our lives. You know, some of the best stories are told around the kitchen, and you know how we observe, you know, maybe our aunties and other people, you know, because some great chefs are men as well, cooking, and you know, so there can be those kind of intersections. Um, but it's family, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's love, and it's the places we are in that life, you know, in terms of our parents and our siblings and our, you know, just kind of what comes out of that, how we're living as people
Mm-hmm.
together. So there's a lot of common ground with respect to um, Caribbean people, West Indian people, Trinidadian people, American people, African American people, Black folk, Southern folk, um, you know, uh, and and that's what I love. Like that's what I love to talk about. That I love to be able to present people and ordinary people doing interesting, extraordinary things. Um, and a lot of times they are people of color, and that's just how it is, because we are all kinds of people.
Laurie had said that your work has an honesty and color and humility and is compelling to read. And I have to testify to that. I had the privilege of seeing the play. But I want to ask this question. The last question about how, as a Trinidadian, were you influenced in telling the story of African American? Would have you ever considered, or will you ever consider, or is it in the works of doing a Caribbean family per se?
That's possible. I don't
Okay,
know. I can't answer that.
right.
That goes back to my enjoying the journey,
Mm-hmm.
and while it looks like so much is a plan, and I don't really have a plan.
And,
I mean, clearly I try and put things into perspective and I think, okay, maybe I want that and how do I get there? But it's really not that clear for me,
okay.
and so I can't say, the first play Christmas Weekend was a Caribbean American family, and it really was that intersection of Americanized children creating their own identity and moving through the world with immigrant type Caribbean parents, and there was some of that.
Mm-hmm.
A true kind of creolized, localized piece that would be something different, and with more of my experiences that I'm getting in the Caribbean, that's possible as well. Um, but I also grew up in Maryland, and they used to call me Southern Yankee, as they talk about,
Southern
uh,
Yankee.
north of north of Maryland, and so when you're up in Philly and New York, I would spend time when I was younger in New York, and they'd say, "Oh, you going back to the farm?" And I'm like, "I don't live on a farm," And for those listening who are, from Mississippi and other places, they're kind of like, "What are you talking about, Maryland?" So I again, so I got uh, um, definitely observed and different experiences that help bring this kind of a family into late, to the story. And just a little sneak peek, my next piece that I'm working on is actually about five sisters. And so that's going to be, I don't, somehow I'm moving into family drama. I don't, that, again, that wasn't a plan either. But I realize, I don't know, it's creating a voice for these families, and I want to do that. And I also, and I'm a male, so forgive me, but um, I want to write some strong female roles. That's one thing I want to do as well. Not to say that they can't do
Nigel,
it
could you
themselves,
repeat
and
that
they
part?
do,
I didn't hear
but
you
I also
clearly.
want to as well.
Nigel, I didn't hear you clearly. You want to write what roles?
Strong women roles,
Oh, okay, okay.
interesting, um, conflicted, unique, um, and I've been heavy with the guys on these last two plays, and so I want to challenge myself. Um,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Jay said in the chat room, I love solitude too. I just yeah, I want to say that. So if you could change one thing about the theater, what would it be?
Change one thing about the theater. Um, well, I guess that's difficult. First and foremost, I'm an artist, so I come from that place, I think, and so while I understand commercialism and business and all that needs and creating everything, I think that that's a lot going on this side. That's on this side of the equation that I don't always want to get into, because I want people to, you know, come together and do interesting, oftentimes activist type work, um, and experience each other and enjoy it and have other people come, but that you can't just do that, unfortunately, right? Because you need a theater, and you need lights and what have you. So speaking about theater from that perspective, not just kind of what people present on stage, because it's all subjective and the things that I love and things I'm not sure about, but I'm still willing to check it out. Um, um, but bringing theater forward, yeah, yeah, I
What
want to wear my artist hat more.
you what you what?
Want to wear my artist hat more.
Or you want to wear that? So that's why you would change.
Yeah, the ability to to be artists.
Hmm.
Yes.
So
But
who
everything's business, so you have to appreciate that too.
got that? Who are your theatrical heroes, and what about them helps you keep going and striving?
Um, wow, that's a tough question for me. Um, like I don't know. I feel like maybe you're looking for some big names, and I don't know any.
Ossie Davis
um,
comes to mind.
but I will say that I'm definitely inspired whenever I see a show, right? And it always brings me back to when I started in school,
Mhm.
and when I see something that's moving and interesting, and even if it's not so great, but I can recognize the effort that goes into it, and so sometimes it's like, not loving the story, but I really see the gifts that the actors have, and it makes me wish to want to be a part of that. Makes me want to, be on stage, or maybe on stage, but and somehow be a part of those productions and somehow participate in that process and somehow help in that industry bring stories forward. So it's the everyday theater people really in the in it behind the
Uh-huh.
scenes on stage um, that inspire me when I go to shows and see that, and especially with young people as well, and just talking about performance and stage and not so much theater, but um, I just love to see when young people are passionate about what they're doing. And I don't watch television and these days, and I never was a big reality TV person, but I have seen reality TV, and especially some of the singing competitions and that kind of a thing. Um, and just to see young people, and I understand, gimmicks and so forth, but just to see, generally speaking, the young people go after their dreams and passions, to have passion to begin with, to have something that you feel so strongly about, at 12 and 13 and 18 and what have you, and then to go after that, you know, um, I just think that's amazing. That's awesome, And so if there's anything that I can do, and also for someone to be older and not be going after their dreams and passions, when there is a 16-year-old who will is do or die, that's ridiculous. If you're 36, get on it. What? So
Th- thank thank
that
thank
inspires me.
thank you, sir. So tell us about your experience writing your first play. Was it a steep learning curve?
Was it a what? Sorry,
A steep learning curve.
steep learning curve. Um, everything is. I'm
You
a
know.
sponge. I soak everything up.
Uh
I'm an amateur at everything.
huh.
um, and it was awesome. And it's interesting process like this one as well, because the most of it was done, and then it's in the final months and weeks and days and stuff that it's just a major rush of the clarity of the story and the movement of the people and the dialogue, and I just start changing stuff, and it just comes to me, and we go from there. And so I had some of that experience with Too Late as well before we moved into readings, table readings, and also asking people to share their opinion on the story, and um, and so it just kind of clicks when it needs to click for me.
So generally, how long it takes to write a play?
Well, so the draft, because I tend to pick things up and put it back down, and then work on other types of writing projects, can take a long time, months and years. But then when I get going, I'm at a place where I want to move it forward. I feel comfortable. It's going in a place that I want it to go. Then I can tighten it up in like 3 months.
Oh, okay, okay. Let's take a short break.
Okay.
Time to share your journey with us. Your host, my guest is Nigel. We are back. Barto, Nigel.
Yes.
I hope everything is okay, my friend.
Yes. Yes. I want
Wonderful.
to take a quick minute to say something, if I may.
Sure.
Okay. And firstly, I just want to give a quick shout out and thank you to Jay, Brian, and Lori for your questions. So thank you. I appreciate you guys listening and asking me stuff that I have to think about.
Well.
But
Mhm.
as we were talking about enjoying the journey, and recognizing that it's not all fun and games, and sometimes it can be very serious, and you have to appreciate what you have and where you are, and who is in your life. And so I had a personal scare this weekend, and it was pretty tough. Um, and it just it lets you know that tomorrow is not promised, and so you really do have to enjoy the moment and enjoy where you are and appreciate what you have, and recognizing that life can be short, which is also a message within the play as well. And but So thankful and so blessed that everything turned around, and that scare is gone. And so I want to do a quick shout out and a thank you to Deborah and Sharon and Afia and Jillian and Cheryl and Dexter, and Sammy and Sasha. Um, and because I am because of you. All right.
Wonderfully said. Wonderfully said. Um, Lori P says, ha ha ha. Kali said, hi Nigel. I am enjoying listening to you. What kind of activities were you involved in during high school?
Who asked that?
Kali.
Caleb?
Kali. Cali.
Callie. Oh, okay, hi. During high school, I played soccer, and I did some drama, stage crew, and acting.
Mm-hmm.
What else did I do? I was on student government, and I can't remember. That was kind of it.
That's okay. Anthony H said, asked, hold a second. I just refreshed the page. Just give me a second. While that is being refreshed, let me ask a question I have. What advice do you have for a high school playwright?
Keep writing, don't stop. Um, uh, be willing to share some of it with others. Um, be willing to be true to your story. Your writing is yours. We all don't write the same way. We all don't tell a story the same way. There's someone who needs to hear that story. There are definitely people you should share it with. Um, and also, you have to do your homework as well, right? So you have to hone your craft. You have to keep working at it. You have to read other plays and go see plays and talk to people in the play business. Um, and you can emulate some of that and also create your own voice. Um, and we need you, so you should keep doing it.
Thank you for that. Anthony H asked, as a theatrical playwright, do you think about exploring other mediums to tell the story? Also, are there any underlying themes in your work that you would like to explore?
Um, yeah, I think about short film, and so maybe that's in my future. Who knows? Again, I always think about how to do I bring this to life, off of the page in some way, as well as having others enjoy it in book form. And so, yeah, so I think about that and underlying themes. Well, love is love, and I say that all the time. I know people say that. I've put it on a T-shirt,
Love is
and
love.
and so in all of the chaos and the fervor and the hustle and all that we say and don't say and do and don't say, hopefully, at the end of the day, love will prevail.
Len, Len,
So hopefully that's an underlying theme in the many things that I write.
love will prevail. So Lynn asked, what is it about your plays that attracts the audience?
Um, well, I hope that I can tell an interesting story. So I,
Okay.
I
Uh,
think it has to do with that.
and Lori
And
P. Huh?
go
Sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, Lori P said, "Love ya!" Exclamation. Joe asked, "What can teachers do to get students interested in Shakespeare if they find it too hard?"
Well, this is what I this is and not just Shakespeare, but anything really, especially when it comes to young people and students. I've kind of thought about that and had different conversations this year and some of last year a little bit about that. And I think some of it is also figuring out how you go to where they are. You have to really meet people where they are, and I guess you can apply that to anywhere in life. But in terms of who you are and how you language stuff and how you see the world, you kind of have to go there. And so, for example, there are some people, I was having a conversation with people talking about, boys don't like to read, and I can't get my son to read, and that kind of a thing. And it's kind of how you present it, because then in the next sentence they'll talk about, how he loves comics and comic books. Well, so that's a story, and that's reading, right? And so, but in some of our minds, we're thinking War and Peace. That's the only reading, and so it's how you language it, and it's where you start with that person, and so you have to show them that this is actually a story. It's in this particular form, and then how you build on that to want to pick up another story and that kind of a thing. And then with some of the Shakespeare, yeah, you're probably going to have to define some of it and figure out how you make it modern day, but then appreciate that the language we use now, may sound Shakespearean 1,000 years from now, and so it's the same thing within that time, and yet speak to the beauty of how the the um, the language and the messages and the emotions and expressions are still very prevalent today. With respect to um, lovers and family um, and power and ego. Um, so hopefully that might help a little, Callie.
That was actually um, Anthony H.
Anthony, okay,
Yes.
Anthony H. All
Yeah.
right.
No, no, actually, no. You were answering. It was Joe. Joe asked, "What can teachers do to get
Oh,
students
okay,
motivated?"
Joe. Sorry.
Joe.
Yes.
And Brian asks, "What? Where do you get your inspirations?"
I think everywhere. Uh, uh, just whatever you see and whatever you do. And for me, I guess it's kind of like being a feeling person.
Mm-hmm.
You have to. If you're walking around with blinders on, then maybe you're not inspired. You can't be inspired, But as you see things, and hopefully everyone sees things every day in their life, and not only from the beauty around you in terms of nature and just and how things unfold, and as we are in and move into spring and summer and you see things in bloom and all of that and more sunshine, I mean that's amazing. But then also as you see the resilience of people and young people, and we're in a time and a place where it just seems like there is this speed up of tragic incidences. It just seems like the conveyor belt of some horrific things is just moving quicker and quicker. But I think we have to carve out where those good places are, or the resilience in that, unfortunately, in the adversity, because there's always going to be adversity. But how we react to all of that, I think we can be inspired by that, when we hear a lot of the different stories. When I was a high school student, and kind of back to that question of what else did you do in high school, um, there was a young lady who said to me, why don't you come and volunteer where I volunteer? And she volunteered at a nursing home in our neighborhood where I lived in Maryland. And I'm not even sure how that became a conversation, but she said, you should come. And I said, okay, sure, I'll check that out. And I came and they called me a visitor or friend or something, because at the time I was the only male, and I don't know how it is now, but males weren't candy stripers. If you all know what a candy striper is, and so it'd be a visitor who would visit, and so that was one of my early experiences of not only falling in love with giving back and community service and volunteerism, but also an appreciation for our seniors and understanding that there's an incredible body of wealth there,
Mm-hmm.
and so we all going to get there, many of us, and it's tough, but there's a whole life that they've lived, and so it was an opportunity to spend some time with them, to listen to their stories and to talk to them, and it's been wonderful. And I've even done that with homeless people, or people on the street, and because they can, it's easy to disregard, and we're all busy. But there was a time, especially when I was in Philadelphia in school, and I would do that, and I would stop in the park and I would talk to some of them, and it'd be fascinating what they would say, and they were jazz musicians when they were 20, and they were this and they were that, and life throws you all kinds of things, and you end up where you end up, but what does that mean? I mean, you still lived a wonderful, beautiful life, and you have stories to tell, and they should get to tell them as well. They shouldn't just be thrown to the side. Um,
And
so much inspires me.
so I always marvel at how time creeps up on this show. You tell a
I'm
guest an
talking too
hour and a
much.
half, and they're like, "What am I gonna talk about an hour and a half?" And then next thing you know, it's 5 minutes or 7 minutes left. So we have several more questions, and let's see how fast you can answer them, Nigel. Like speed
Okay,
answers.
okay.
Um, GD asked, "Is there any subject off limits for you?"
Subject off limits. Um, no, not as yet.
Not as yet.
I'm generally not a um, uh, kind of a vulgar or crude writer, I mean that has its place. But in terms of the subject matter, it, I can't think of anything as yet.
Okay. Okay. GD again, you didn't answer my question. And yes, GD did ask this question before. What makes for good theater? Can you give a short answer on that, Nigel?
Um, yeah, a good story.
A good story. I like that. Jay, do you think that creative writers need formal training besides English literacy classes?
Need what training? Sorry.
Do you think that creative writers need formal training besides English literacy classes?
Formal training besides that?
Yeah.
Well, they definitely need hands-on experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think you know you get better with practice and experience, and so you have to be in it. You know, so you can't just read about it and learn about it and hear about it. You actually have to do it as well. So I think a lot of that is your training. You know, and there are all kinds of different tough roads that you experience and that you're on. Um, you know, but it only makes you better and stronger for sure. You know, so yeah, so a lot of the training and the teaching is actually in the doing.
I admire and applaud your desire to give back and mentor others, Nigel. You produce a spoken word event called Barto Speak to showcase new artists. What have you learned from that experience about freedom outside the boxes?
I've learned how talented people are. I've learned how um, people are really looking to find ways to create and offer their voice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and um, you know, people want to be heard. There are a lot of things that need to be said, or just you know that person has their personal experience and want to say. Um, and I, and I think we are inspired by each other, and so I think we appreciate those kinds of environments when we can have that kind of an exchange with sharing our pieces, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because it allows us to stop and think about our own life and how we want to, um, you know, make it better and live with each other and live with ourselves. You know, and you know, because while we're here, you know, because again, it's short and we'll be gone, and so while we're here, you know, we better work to do our darndest to figure it out for ourselves, um, uh, you know, and do unto others as they say, as you want to do unto, you know, as you want them to do unto you. Um, so yeah, stop and think and do it. I think it's important.
I like that. Stop and think and do it. Just do it. Uh, what's the best advice you have ever been given?
That I've ever what
What is the best advice you have ever been given?
the best advice. Um, I don't remember exactly how it was said, but in a gist, I'll tell you kind of what it is, and it would have been from my mom and discussions from my with my mom, and it's basically something like you know it's not about you, it's not always about you. You know, basically get over yourself
I love
is,
that.
is the
Yeah,
gist of it, you know,
I love that.
and that has just played true in so many cases, you know, because I think a lot of times that we can enter a situation, enter a room, you know, whatever it is, begin a job, and and we show up with so many preconceived notions, and we make a lot of assumptions about what other people are thinking and feeling and stuff, but we don't really know. So you often hear that kind of stuff. You know, maybe they woke up on the wrong side of the bed or whatever the case may be. It's really not about you, and so you have to be able to pull back and recognize that it's their stuff and whatever that is. Um, and I can give you a quick story to make that clear for when that was said to me. And so I grew up Catholic, raised Catholic, and going to Catholic church when I was young. And 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 our family members would talk about feeling prejudice in the church, right? And racism and that type of thing, and how you're supposed to be brotherly and sisterly and godly, and you sit next to each other. But then when it comes time to give each other the sign of peace and shake each other's hand, people turn away from you. Especially people who do not look like you. And that was the argument some people gave. But my mother is such the optimist. She's like, it's not about you. You have no idea what's going on in your life and what happened today or this morning or yesterday. So don't even internalize that.
Mm-hmm.
You're there to create your relationship, and then leave. Your relationship with God, and then leave. And that was always comforting for me because I would sometimes want to jump on that bandwagon with the people who were saying that kind of stuff, and you get caught up in that detail of who's looking at you and how they're looking at you. It's not about you.
Not about you.
It's not about
So,
that.
so where do you go when you want to be alone?
To the movies.
To the movie. What's next on your journey?
What's next on my journey? Bringing Too Late to the stage, which will be in July. So um, I'm walking that and running that right now.
July
Uh,
16th to the 20th.
so the 16th to the 20th,
Mm-hmm.
yes, Poets Den Theater. And I'm living that every day and getting more and more excited as we get closer to getting there. I'm so proud of this piece. I'm so proud of the people I'm working with. Such awesome, gifted, seasoned people on the production side. Such wonderful people who will be on stage giving it all. They're all for you. Um, I mean, it makes me sit and watch and go, wow, I like this story. I mean,
Nigel,
and that's because of
I hate to cut
the
you. I
awesome
wanna, I
talent
wanna, I
who
hate to
kind of
cut, I
kind
hate to,
of make it three dimensional and
I
bring
hate,
it,
I hate to cut you,
beyond the
Nigel.
page.
I wanna read some stuff in the chat room because it's, time is on us.
Okay.
Um, Jay wasn't Jay. Jay said, "Great conversation. Thanks, Nigel, for sharing your journey, and thanks again, Selvin, for facilitating such wonderful show. Thank you, Jay." Jill
Thank you,
said,
guys.
Nigel work is always inspiring and compelling. Thanks for sharing your journey." And Nigel, I have one more question for you. What makes you laugh?
Um, what makes me laugh? Um, Other people make me laugh when they're laughing. I like that infectious kind of sound, and that happens with different people. That happens sometimes with my mom, and how you can just start even with my dad. You can just start laughing, and then you just keep laughing for no reason. I mean, that is one of the sweetest places you can go.
Yes.
Where it's for the next 5 minutes, it's just about nothing
Right.
but pure smiles on your face.
Yes. I love that.
Um, and you're like, what was that about? I don't know, but it felt good.
Well, could you, Nigel? I ask this of all our guests. Give us, take us out with a few words of inspiration, wisdom. Something to digest, something
Uh,
for the soul.
yes. So, you should speak and walk your truth, really. I think that, and part of what this setup was outside the boxes, right? Enjoying the journey outside the
Yes.
boxes and freedom to be able to do that, and being able, and some of that is a journey to get there. But whatever that may be, because I think that we come into the world, um, um, you know, you know, pure and fairly free, easy, and honest. And so much is put upon us from the moment that our life starts moving forward. With respect to things that our families say or don't say, and what we encounter in the world, and it just adds and adds and adds. and societal pressures and that kind of a thing. And then as we start figuring out, well, I like this, I don't like that. I'm interested in this type of work. I appreciate this type of music, whatever the case may be. There are always people who kind of want to poo-poo and rain on your parade, and so we really have to hold true to who we are, and it's okay. It really is okay. It really is okay.
Thank you.
And sometimes it takes a lot longer for us. If I was 1922, I probably would not be saying this. I would be needing someone to say this to me. So I get it, and I'm thankful for the journey to be able to say this. But you too can get there, and the beauty is if you can get there sooner, that's wonderful. If not, that's okay too. But you have to be able to step out of your box because did you put yourself in a box or did someone else put you in that box? And why is that?
Thank you.
So knock those doors down.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Nigel. Thank you for. I really appreciate that, my brother.
Thank you.
You know.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, thank you. You're doing wonderful work. I hope to. Well, I will be going to see your play, and you talk about doing you, and it is okay. And I just want to add to that it is okay to be yourself and stop beating up on yourself. Um, Try to understand that beyond your understanding, there is understanding. Beyond your knowledge, there is knowledge. And just be humble and seek. Just be humble when you're confronted with things you do not understand. Don't knock it, don't beat it up. Try to understand it. But most importantly, be yourself. And as Brother Nigel said, it is okay. It is wonderful to know that you have something, you have an idea. Work on your idea. Don't let anybody take it away from you. Don't let anybody persuade you not to pursue your idea. CWS tonight started with an idea, not mine originally, but I worked on it. And as a result of that, here we are tonight having a conversation with various people. So I want to thank you very much for tuning in every week. Thank you for spending the time with me. I am most grateful. I am most thankful. Brother Nigel, once again, thank you.
Thank you, Selwyn, so much for
You're
this
welcome.
opportunity. I really appreciate chatting with you.
You
And thank you, listeners, and for all your questions. Appreciate it.
and so this is Selwyn Collins saying good night. See you tomorrow. My one of our brothers, Colin Patterson, will be on tomorrow. So good night and God bless. See you tomorrow at 8.